We are a week away from the release of the Fantastic Four First Steps. It feels kinda wild to say that right now. I know the focus has been very heavy on Superman, but I'm also very excited to see this movie. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about some already notable changes that have been made to the final edit of the movie, and I answer some more of your mailbag questions. With that said, let's roll the intro. As I said, Fantastic Four First Steps releases next week. I'm really excited to see the movie, I already have my ticket. However, I think we should discuss the fact that with Superman releasing a week ago, this is the first time both DC and Marvel have had a heavy hitter movie releasing within a couple weeks of one another. Yes, we have seen something similar happen in before, but these are both the benchmark movies that Marvel and DC are releasing this year. All of the marketing has gone into the Fantastic Four compared to Captain America and Thunderbolts, while Superman is the only DC movie to release this year, and it had a big hype train behind it. So far, the domestic numbers for Superman's box office run have been pretty solid. However, internationally, the movie doesn't seem to hit as hard, and people are paying very close attention to Superman specifically since it is the start of the new DC universe, with some outlets saying that Superman needs to be a massive hit right out the gate in order to establish the new DC universe. Now, James Gunn has already debunked the statements that say that Superman needs to make $700 million in order to be seen as a success. The thing is, the general audience doesn't have a real trust in going out to see a superhero movie blindly like they did in 2019. And Superman has had the baggage of the previous DCEU that people were generally not too thrilled with. Yes, I'm aware that those movies have their fans, but the general audiences just weren't as interested in those movies. And the box office numbers really reflect that. But Superman has had a positive reception from audiences and critics. The domestic numbers have been carrying the movie so far, and I think this is an indication that the DC universe can only go up from here. This weekend, they have a relatively clear spot at the box office. The only new movies in theaters this week are Smurfs and I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I feel like it's safe to say they will not impact the box office results of Superman that much. But next week, as I mentioned, we have the release of the Fantastic Four First Steps. If we look at ticket pre-sales, these were the two biggest movies of 2025, with Superman having a higher number of ticket pre-sales than Fantastic Four. But I think Fantastic Four has a longer run in theaters without having another movie act as a true competitor. August is pretty light as far as summer blockbusters go. Don't get me wrong, there are big movies releasing in August, but there's not a big summer tentpole movie like Superman or Fantastic Four. And while Superman will most definitely be playing in theaters throughout August, if Fantastic Four has a big opening, it will take priority in most theaters. They'll dedicate a lot more screens to whatever the newer movie is or whatever is making the most amount of money at that time. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens here. Fantastic Four is the final Marvel movie to release in 2025, and the next MCU movie to release in theaters is going to be Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is scheduled to begin filming any day now. Spider-Man normally has the name brand recognition attached to it, and it will always do well in theaters, but seeing the Fantastic Four succeed is going to be really important to Marvel, seeing how much they're banking on the success of Fantastic Four to carry over to Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. And especially with having the Fantastic Four at the forefront of the MCU going into the next saga. But enough about box office numbers, let's talk a little bit about the movie itself, because it was revealed recently that a pretty major actor in the movie has been cut out entirely. John Malkovich featured in the first teaser for the movie, and there was some speculation on who he would be playing. Some suggested a future Franklin Richards, while others implied that he would be playing Fantastic Four villain Red Ghost. And Red Ghost was the confirmed character who he would have been playing in the movie. However, it seems like he didn't play a very major role in the movie, as Red Ghost was cut out of it, and it looks like the character was only going to be featured in an opening montage showing the Fantastic Four kind of doing heroic acts in their early days. It sucks to see an actor I really like John Malkovich, having the potential to join the MCU with this movie, being featured in the early marketing for it, and ultimately being cut out of the movie. But it does make me wonder if there is the potential to see an extended edition of the Fantastic Four First Steps a couple months after it releases. We had previously had this with Spider-Man No Way Home, which while it was an extended edition of the movie, all it really did was add in a couple minor deleted scenes. I think they could do the same thing with Fantastic Four First Steps if the movie ends up doing very well, or at the very least similar to Spider-Man Far From Home, releasing the cutscene as its own short film attached to the Blu-ray or Disney Plus release. If fans and critics end up really liking the movie, it would be a great way to get people to resubscribe to Disney Plus. I'm really bummed he was cut out of the movie, but hopefully it benefits the entire project in the long run. That's all I have to say about this though. I'm going to wrap this video up by answering a mailbag question. If you have a question you want me to answer in a future video, drop it in the comments below with the hashtag mailbag. Today's question comes from, and I'm sorry if I say this incorrectly, O'Reilly Say 3925. They ask, do you read comics on Marvel Unlimited? And if so, what are your top 3 recommendations? Thank you so much for that question. Now, I have subscribed to Marvel Unlimited in the past, but I don't really like that service, I'm gonna be honest. I've considered making videos on how much I dislike the service in the past. I haven't used it in 2 years probably, but the organization on that site has always been a mess. I don't know if this is still an issue, and I'm not willing to resubscribe to figure out if they've resolved it, but using the web version is a complete nightmare. Now, I used to be a Comixology stan. That was my favorite way to buy and read comics. I preferred owning the digital version of each of the stories I would read, just in case I needed to reference it in the future, but that service was a mess once it merged with Kindle, and while they fixed some of the issues I had with it before, it's still not as great as it used to be. But I will give you my top 5 favorite comics that I've read that are currently available on Marvel Unlimited. The first is one that I just finished rereading again, the original run of The Ultimate Spider-Man. This is a great standalone Spider-Man comic, and while it does have the crossover with the other Ultimate Universe characters, most of it you can just read on its own. It's a solid reinterpretation of the origin and early days of Spider-Man, and I think it's probably one of the highlights of the Ultimate Universe. The next thing I just read a condensed version of, and I want to go back and actually read the full comic run, is the Jonathan Hickman run of the Fantastic Four. I think you can jump into this one without really knowing that much more about the Fantastic Four. It's a great reintroduction to the team, and I highly recommend going right into reading this. Don't look up anything about this run. Also, if you are going to read it, maybe stick to the Marvel Unlimited service. As I mentioned, I picked up a condensed version, and I didn't even know that, and it was through the Marvel Premiere Collection. The other books in this line that I've picked up have all been great, and I felt really let down that I was picking up a condensed version of this comic run and had no idea. My next recommendation comes from another Marvel Premiere Collection release, and that would be the 2016 run of Black Panther. You can find collected versions of the storyline titled A Nation Under Our Feet, and I think it is probably one of the coolest Black Panther stories that I've ever read. I really hope that they work out some way to adapt this in a future movie, because it is a very powerful and well-written Black Panther storyline. My fourth recommendation would have to be Spider-Man Life Story. This is a 6-issue run that adapts the Spider-Man story to happen in real time, with each issue covering a specific decade. That means Peter Parker is aging in real time. He starts the story off as a teenager and ends it as an old man. But another really cool aspect is the way that they cover some of the biggest events in not only Spider-Man's history, but also the Marvel Universe. I don't want to say too much more about it, but it's a really great read. Like I said, only 6 issues, so it's a pretty short one too. My final recommendation, and probably my favorite comic book of all time, is Frank Miller and John Romita Jr.'s 1993 Daredevil: The Man Without Fear. This is a retelling of the Daredevil origin story, but the writing is really strong, the artwork is really great. It's the book that made me fall in love with Daredevil as a character. I'd say Frank Miller has some other solid Daredevil runs, but this one just has such a special place in my heart. Thank you so much for your question again. I really like talking about straight comic books, and I don't get the opportunity to do so very often. But again, if you have another question you would like me to answer in a future video, drop it in the comments down below with the hashtag mailbag. That's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.